This is not on the paper, but as I can't help but be amazed by the fact that what we have all said is so close to each other, and yet we didn't collaborate. We promised each other we would review each other's notes, but we never did. And yet, it's so amazing. So, here I go. Nancy and I were living in Cleveland when we found out that we were going to have our second child. Jeff was already with us. And at that time, we didn't have all of the cute things today like, is it a boy, is it a girl? No clue. So, of course, we picked names for boys and girls. And the name we picked for a girl was Valerie, after a good friend of mine in college, Ken Scott, whose sister's name was Valerie, and Nancy and I just liked it. I think, wasn't that true, Nancy? And in fact, Ken Scott had a 57 Corvette, and I met Nancy in the Colonel's Drive-In in Michigan in Ken's 57 Corvette. In those days, expectant fathers were supposed to go into a holding tank or waiting room, smoke a couple cigarettes, and wait for a nurse dressed in white to come in and show them the baby, which, Nance, I must have done that. Did I? Excuse me for this interaction with my wife here. We moved from Cleveland to Chula Vista, and we bought a house on East Moss Street. And one of my best memories, just etched in my mind, is we had no roller skates, and so Val would go down to the Wolf's house, and they had some big roller skates, and Val would take the skates, put them on, couldn't strap them, couldn't tie them, couldn't do anything, and she would just be flying down the street. And I remember her side ponies. I was the one responsible for the side ponies. I always did the side ponies. And then she was always an athlete, as we've already heard. A wakeboarder, a skier. I see her wakeboard is out there, isn't it, Chris? Okay. Julie told me a story, a recent story. Where's Julie? Raise your hand. Thank you. Of Valerie, and make sure I get this right. She was doing yoga and push-ups in the Scripps Hospital lobby, something like that. Okay. And then while we were in Chula Vista, Julie was born. I could go on long. We left Chula Vista and moved to Denver. This is kind of cool. My sister Shar lived in the Dam East, and that's spelled D-A-M. It's close to Cherry Creek Reservoir. Ted, you know. And my wife and I bought a house in the Dam West, which was the identical house. I mean, unbelievable but true, right, Char? Jeff and Val went to Polton School with Char's kids. I think it was Polton. And Julie was a toddler, and Char and Nancy bowled together. After 2 hard years in Colorado, we moved to Escondido. And at the time, I wasn't a Christian, and God already had a plan for my life, but I had no clue about it. But He led us to a house just over the hill, and we started going to church because it was the right thing to do for the kids. And I asked Jesus Christ to come into my life under the teaching of Dr. Richard Strauss. And Dr. Strauss left us too soon. He fought a long fight with multiple myeloma. And I remember him many times on this podium. This is the first time I've ever been. And he was weakening from the cancer, but he still preached on. And I remember a comment one time. He said, you know, God is able to heal me of cancer. But in my years as a pastor, I have noticed that he usually chooses not to. And I was just in awe of Dr. Strauss as he conducted his life, I was in awe because he lived his life as a Christian should, and he died as a Christian should. And my daughter, I saw her do the same thing. Val went to Eveready Club on Wednesday nights. All the kids had a red and white beanie. And Nancy was not born to be a seamstress. So it was my responsibility to sew the charms on. And I wish I had that beanie, but I don't. And I was just wondering if anybody else here was in Eveready Club and had the red and white beanie with the charms. I'm sure that you're out there. You Jeff. Yeah, not you, Paul. But oh, you got a beanie? Okay, fine. Nancy reminded me that Val would never let me leave the house unless she was on board. I guess I didn't really know this, but whenever I started the car, she would be out like a flash, and sometimes she would chase me down the street, and I had to stop. Who's laughing? Brian, are you laughing? That's your mom. Don't do that. We used to take our boat up to Lake Almanor for a couple weeks every summer, and we must have looked like the Brady Bunch because we had one of those Oldsmobile Vista cruisers with simulated wood on the side. And Paul reminded me that some guy on Lake Almanor had a scaled-down Titanic that he sailed around the lake. Just a little personal note. One year, I remember we were late getting in to Lake Almanor, and somehow we got sidetracked into a town called Greenville. I'll never forget this, Nance. And there was a Harley convention going on in Greenville. It was dark. And so we kind of rolled through this sea of humanity of Harley bikers, wondering if they were going to roll our car over, but we made it.